The restaurant was buzzing with the usual Friday night energy, but no one could have imagined what was about to unfold. At the center table sat Gregory Hensley, a billionaire CEO with a reputation for ruthless deals and a net worth of over $5 billion. His sharp suit, polished shoes, and dismissive glare commanded the room as if he owned it. A stack of documents rested on the table before him, and across sat a Japanese investor, nervous yet polite, relying heavily on the translations Gregory provided. The air was thick with tension as waiters shuffled between tables, serving dishes without daring to meet Gregory's eyes. He was a man people feared more than they respected. That was until fate placed a young waitress with a quiet gift in his path. The waitress, Hannah, had been working at the restaurant for 3 years, saving every penny for her mother's medical bills. She was soft-spoken, humble, and rarely drew attention to herself. Tonight, though, her heart pounded as she served the billionaire's table, because the papers spread out bore something she recognized instantly. The investor across from Gregory spoke in Japanese, a language Hannah knew fluently, though almost no one else at the restaurant did. Gregory translated his words into English, but something was off. Hannah noticed the discrepancy, a twisting in her stomach, as Gregory's translations bent the meaning toward his advantage. She froze for a moment, unsure if she should speak or keep quiet, knowing the risk of interfering. Gregory leaned forward, his tone authoritative, translating a section of the contract aloud. He agrees to transfer control of the patents immediately without conditions, Gregory declared smoothly. Hannah's breath caught because that was not what had been said. The investor had actually stated the patents would remain under joint ownership, with protections for his company's workers. Hannah clenched the serving tray tighter, sweat forming on her palms. The billionaire's confidence was chilling, his deception bold and polished. She realized this was more than a slip, it was fraud on a grand scale. A single lie in that contract meant millions, if not billions, were being stolen. Her heart thudded as she considered the stakes. She was just a waitress, invisible in Gregory's world, but she couldn't stay silent. Hannah swallowed hard, knowing the weight of her next choice could change everything. She placed the dishes down carefully and then, before she could lose her courage, spoke up. "Excuse me, sir," her voice trembled, "but that's not what it says." The table fell silent, the clink of forks and chatter around them fading into nothingness. Gregory's head snapped up, eyes narrowing as if a fly had dared land on his empire. The investor blinked, confused, unsure whether to trust her interruption. The moment stretched like glass about to shatter. Gregory's smile was sharp, cold. "What did you just say?" His voice was low, but it carried the weight of menace. Hannah's knees almost buckled, but she met his stare with trembling determination. "I said that's not what it says," she repeated, steadier this time. The investor turned to her, recognition dawning when she began translating his words accurately, line by line. His eyes widened as he realized Gregory had been distorting every term of the deal. Whispers spread through the restaurant as nearby diners sensed the drama unfolding. Gregory's jaw tightened, his mask slipping for the first time in years. He wasn't just being questioned, he was being exposed. The billionaire tried to laugh it off, calling Hannah a confused waitress, and dismissing her interference as nonsense. But the investor leaned closer to Hannah, testing her with a few quick sentences in Japanese. She translated perfectly, her voice steady. Despite the storm brewing around her, the investor's face hardened, and the room seemed to grow colder as his gaze shifted back to Gregory. The documents suddenly looked less like symbols of power and more like evidence of betrayal. Gregory, for the first time, seemed cornered. Hannah's courage had shifted the balance of power with nothing but truth on her side. And truth, once spoken, could not be unspoken. Still, Gregory wasn't ready to back down. He tried intimidation, standing to his full height, towering over Hannah. "Do you realize who I am?" he hissed, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. The restaurant fell silent, forks frozen in midair, staff peeking nervously from the kitchen door. Hannah's chest rose and fell, but she didn't look away. "Yes," she whispered, "and I also realize what you're doing is wrong." The investor reached for the documents with steady hands, scanning them again with new clarity, and nodded slowly. Gregory's entire empire, built on manipulation, was beginning to crumble at the hands of a waitress who simply refused to let a lie stand. The investor stood, thanking Hannah with a bow, his voice loud enough for the restaurant to hear. "You have saved me from signing away my company," he declared in accented English. Applause erupted from nearby tables, a ripple of courage and admiration spreading like wildfire. Gregory's face turned scarlet, his composure shattered, the power he wielded suddenly meaningless in a room where truth was being cheered. He tried to grab the papers, but the investor pulled them away, sliding them back into his briefcase. Hannah stood frozen, her hands trembling, overwhelmed by the eyes fixed on her. She hadn't planned to be a hero, only to do what was right. Gregory stormed out, leaving a trail of tension in his wake, but his downfall had only begun. The investor, deeply moved, vowed to report the incident to international authorities. Within days, the news spread across global media. $500 million scam exposed, CEO under investigation. Gregory's empire unraveled as board members fled, shareholders demanded answers, and investigators unearthed years of hidden fraud. And through it all, the story of a young waitress who spoke up spread even faster than the scandal itself. She became a symbol of integrity, proof that one voice, however small, could topple even the mightiest towers of deceit. Hannah's life changed, but not in the way fame usually does. She didn't seek cameras or headlines, instead, she found strength in the letters she received from strangers. People wrote about how her courage inspired them to stand up against workplace bullies, unfair bosses, or family injustices. Mothers told her they shared her story with their children to teach them bravery. And quietly, behind the scenes, the investor she had helped offered her something unexpected. He paid off her mother's medical bills entirely and gave Hannah a scholarship fund for her future. She was overwhelmed, her tears flowing freely as gratitude filled her heart. Months later, Hannah walked into the hospital where her mother was recovering, carrying flowers in her arms. Her mother, frail but smiling, whispered, "You saved me, and you saved so many others." Hannah shook her head, sitting at her bedside. "I was just scared, but I couldn't stay silent," she admitted softly. Her mother squeezed her hand, eyes shining with pride. "Courage is not the absence of fear, my dear. It's choosing to act even when you are afraid." Those words stayed with Hannah, shaping her path long after the scandal faded from the headlines. She understood now that power wasn't about wealth or status, it was about integrity. The world moved on, as it always does, but Gregory Hensley never recovered his empire. His name became synonymous with greed and deceit, a warning etched into business schools and financial articles alike. Hannah, meanwhile, continued to work hard, though her life was no longer defined by struggle. She pursued her education in international business, determined to build a future where fairness and honesty were not rare commodities. She remembered every night she had spent doubting herself, every moment when fear almost silenced her, and she realized those struggles had prepared her for that one defining night. Fate had placed her in the right place, but it was her courage that had changed everything. When people asked why she had spoken up, Hannah always smiled gently and said, "Because silence helps the liar, not the truth." Her words carried weight far beyond her small frame, becoming a mantra for those who had once felt powerless. She learned that integrity was contagious, one act of bravery could spark hundreds more. And though she remained humble, her story was told again and again, inspiring countless others. She hadn't just stopped a scam, she had lit a torch in the darkness of greed. And even the darkest empires cannot withstand the light of a single flame.